Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 15 transfer plans. In this weekly series, normally at the start of the week, I take you through some of my early thoughts and transfer plans ahead of the upcoming game week, and there are only 2 weeks left of the World Cup now, and to be honest, a lot of our teams look a little bit messy with injuries, rotation and also suspensions as well, so hopefully today's video will be helpful. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe, but without further ado, let's jump to today's video. Guys, as always, to get this video out for you just after the football ends on a Sunday evening, I have to start recording at halftime during the final game. So it's currently halftime in the Manchester United versus West Ham United game. Man United are winning 1-0. Rashford goal. I'm absolutely delighted that he's got a goal. He's been looking fantastic recently. Unfortunately, that's not great for my FPL team because I very nearly brought him in. And of course, he is owned by quite a few managers in and around me. And to be honest, it was another pretty poor week for me. I've had 4 red arrows on the bounce now. I've fallen outside the top 1k for the first time in about 5 or 6 weeks now. But to be honest, it wasn't a disaster. And I'm quite happy that considering I've had 4 relatively poor weeks in a row where I've been sort of scraping by, to only have dropped to about 1.5, 1.6k, depending what happens in the second half of the final game, I should finish in the top 2k. And I still think that's a ridiculously good start. And I think I'm just going to try and scrape by to the World Cup, and then we'll obviously have basically like a complete reset in the World Cup, and then I can move forward and hopefully, using my chips and having a completely new team, push back into the top 1k and have a really strong end to the season. So for this specific week, I was basically saved by captaincy. I got a captain return, which was pretty big this week because some people, obviously, if you captain the likes of Kane, maybe you didn't. And my defense pulled through. So Pope, Gahey, Trippier, Cancelo, all getting clean sheets. Trippier getting another attacking return and bonus. The man is an absolute monster. And then Salah getting a return was absolutely massive because his ownership's actually quite low. And obviously double points for the captain. Martinelli did get a return, but pretty much everyone has Martinelli anyway. Well done if you did captain Martinelli. That was a great shout. The most frustrating part of the game week for me was Saka because he was absolutely ridiculous in the first 20 minutes before he picked up the injury. He could have had 2, 3, 4 returns just in that first 20 minutes. Obviously, Arsenal went on to win 5-0, and the replacement for Saka come on, and Reece Nelson, and he was absolutely brilliant as well. And it does make you think that I think if Saka had stayed on, you're probably looking at a minimum 2 or 3 returns. I know it doesn't always play out like that, and I'm not saying just because Reece Nelson got some returns, as a result, Saka would have got those exact returns. But he did look phenomenal. Obviously, Arsenal were brilliant as well. I think he would have got a few more chances to get attacking returns. So that was super frustrating because he was my transfer in this week. I took out Bowen. I brought in Saka. Not only does Saka have pretty tricky fixtures in 15 and 16, which I knew when I brought him in, but now he's picked up the injury too, and he came off after only the single assist and 4 points. So that was a super frustrating transfer. But as I always say to you guys, judge the quality of your decision based on the decision-making process and not the outcome. Was it a good decision to bring Saka in? Well, Arsenal won 5-0. Saka looked amazing, got an assist in the first 5 minutes. Yes, it probably would have been a fantastic decision had he not got injured. So I can't complain too much down. I can't beat myself up. The front line was an absolute disaster. We did get news before the deadline, if you were on my deadline stream, that Haaland wasn't in the starting 11. I kept him in my team, but obviously took the armband on him. We then found out that he wasn't involved in the squad at all. So I had Andreas coming on for a 3-pointer. And then I've got Mitrovic for a 1-pointer and Firmino for a 2-pointer. Frustratingly, both Mitrovic and Firmino had a lot of chances to score. Mitrovic in particular, I think he had something like 10 or 11 shots. They both accumulated a reasonable XG. It was just one of those weeks where there were a lot of sort of near misses. I could have potentially got some returns, more returns from Saka, Mitrovic, Firmino, but I've been having quite a lot of luck in the first few games of the season to get to the rank that I'm at, so I can't complain. And like I said, considering I've had a few bad weeks in a row, for the bad weeks to only have pushed me down to about sort of 1.5, 2k, I'm not too displeased. So that's the way Game Week 14 went for me. Let's see what happens in the second half. If sort of Dalot and Rashford get any more returns, I might be pushed out of the top 2k. Relatively happy. Let's move on to Game Week 15. So moving ahead to Game Week 15, and I think a lot of us are going to be looking at our teams and thinking, this does not look good for the upcoming game week, but I think a lot of us will be in a similar position, as I said. And also, we've only got 2 weeks to get by now, so we don't have to worry too long term. And just because we have maybe some difficult fixtures on paper, it doesn't always play out that way in FPL. And sometimes the tricky fixture on paper might be okay. So yes, like Chelsea and Arsenal play against each other. Yes, Spurs and Liverpool play against each other. Yes, we might have the likes of Mitrovic and Andreas against City. And we have injuries as well. But sometimes it doesn't end up being as bad as we think. But for me, myself, I'm going ahead into Game Week 15 with 2 free transfers, which is absolutely massive. I decided not to use my second free transfer in Game Week 14 and just to play Gahey. And of course, he got the clean sheet. So I'm delighted that I made that decision. And it does leave me in this week with 2 free transfers. I've only got 0.3 in the bank, but I'm in a position where I could sell pretty much any player in my team, as we'll discuss in a second. So money in the bank hopefully won't be much of an issue for me. The only part of my team I'm actually happy with is the defence, and I can almost guarantee that unless something crops up midweek, I won't be making a defensive transfer. Pope and Trippier are absolutely fine. Cancelo against Fulham at home, perfect fixture. Castagna against Everton away. Obviously, it's not ideal that it's an away fixture, but Leicester have improved dramatically defensively over the last few weeks. I think they've been lucky to not concede slightly more, but even against City, they look like a really organised unit, and I do think we're starting to see improvements in Leicester, and Castagna continues to look pretty attacking. So Castagna will probably be in my starting 11. And not only do I have a pretty strong back three, I've also got Mark Gahey first bench against West Ham away. And again, an away fixture, not the easiest fixture against West Ham, but I'm perfectly happy relying on him if I need to as my first sub, if I have any issues that I can't deal with my free transfers. I've got Doherty as my fifth defender. Yes, it's not ideal, but I don't think when I've only got 3 free transfers now up to the World Cup, 2 this week and 1 next week, I don't think I want to use one of those valuable 3 free transfers on Doherty, because I just don't think any defenders that I can think of really have the upside that it's worth using a free transfer on. And when I look at my 7 attackers, or my 8 attackers, I should say, it's all a bit of a mess. So moving on to the attack, let's say the defense is fine. I'm not going to use a defensive transfer. Moving on to the attack, I could justify selling all 8 of my attackers very, very easily, right? Saka and Martinelli got a pretty tricky away fixture against Chelsea, and then they're away against Wolves. Saka's picked up the injury. It didn't look great. I've got a feeling he'll be out. And regardless, you could justify selling either of those. I'll probably end up keeping Martinelli just because I have money stacked up in him, right? I've got money tied up in him. And also, I think Saka would be more of an issue if he is out injured or if he's a doubt. So those two are maybe slight issues, specifically Saka. Foden is a really random one, right? He's played every Premier League game this season, and then he's just been benched 2 in a row. I've spoken to some Man City fans, and they think it was a more sort of tactical / being rested rather than being in Pep's bad books, or rather than it being a fact that he hasn't been playing well. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that means he'll be back in for Fulham, but I can't confirm that at all. And to be honest, I'm extremely surprised that he's been dropped 2 weeks in a row, or that he hasn't started 2 Premier League games in a row. So Foden could potentially be an issue for us. Salah, probably not. When you look at everything else that's gone on, Salah's probably not an issue, especially when you look at the fact they've got Southampton at home in game week 16. But again, he's very, very expensive. And if I do sell Salah, it could give me money to make an upgrade elsewhere or to buy a slightly better player in one of the other positions. So even Salah's not safe. Haaland poses an issue because we don't know how long he's going to be out. Pepper said that it was actually ligament damage, and I think basically it looks like he's going to be touch and go for the game against Fulham. So we'll get updates throughout the week. That could provide an issue if it looks like he's going to be out for 15 and 16. Do we sell Haaland? Firmino's obviously in a similar position to Salah. He's just not been great in recent weeks. He's been getting the chances, he's just not been finishing them. Is he going to play both of the final 2 Premier League games? And Tottenham away is not an easy fixture, I wouldn't say. I know Bournemouth put 2 past them, but it's not a great fixture, especially the fact that it's away. And then I've got Mitrovic and Andreas against Man City at home and then Manchester United in game week 16. So the 2 Fulham boys with pretty tricky fixtures coming up. So like I said, I look at all 8 attackers and I'm like, I could happily sell pretty much all 8 of them for different reasons. The ones that just I don't think need to be sold really are Foden, Martinelli, and probably Salah, right? I don't think any of those 3 midfielders really need to be sold. And I think even if Haaland is out, I just think with the money I've got tied up in him and the fact that I don't really like a lot of the other strikers particularly, I'm just wondering, is it worth it when I know I'm going to want him back post-World Cup anyway? So there's that to think about. So I probably won't be selling at the moment. The plan anyway is probably not to sell Foden, Martinelli, Salah or Haaland. So the 3 players that are probably on the chopping block for me, and probably not Andreas either just because he's a good cheap sub. The 3 players on the chopping block are probably Saka, Mitrovic and Firmino. So those are the 3 that could probably be sold at the moment. I'm probably leaning towards selling Saka, obviously, if he's injured. And then at the moment, I'd probably lean towards Mitrovic more than Firmino. The reason I say that is Mitrovic is on 4 yellow cards now, so he's a slight risk there. And I think he's got 2 tricky fixtures against City and United. And United have improved defensively, whereas Firmino has Tottenham away and Southampton at home, which I think are better fixtures. Obviously, Mitrovic is on penalties, Firmino isn't, so that does lean it back in Mitrovic's favour. But I think at the moment, if you were to push me on what I plan on doing, it's probably to sell Saka plus one of the strikers, use both 2 free transfers, and really attack the final 2 weeks. If Saka is dramatically fine, like if there's a dramatic change in the situation, he's absolutely fine for game week 15, I'd probably sell Mitrovic and Firmino and keep Saka. So it'd probably be 2 of the strikers being sold. So these are some of the things that I'm thinking about at the moment. It's very early in the week. Just to say that my team's not in a great position. I'm on the back of 4 red arrows. So if you're having a bit of a rough time in FPL with red arrows and your team's not looking great, don't fret. I'm sure we can solve it ahead of game week 15. So I'm now going to move over to the official FPL site and just take a look at my watch list and the players that I'm currently considering for transferring in those positions. So moving over to the official fantasy site just to end the video to talk about my watch list and the players that I'm potentially looking at transferring in. A few people didn't know you could actually do this. So if you just click on an eye on any of the players and you scroll down right to the bottom, you can see where it says remove from watch list. You only need to click add to watch list, and that starts creating your watch list. And then on the right hand side, you can view by your watch list. So there's the full list there. Click watch list, and that will bring up the players that you've added. So I find this super useful to use if you want to do like your tinkering on the official site to see which players you can afford and stuff. You can create a watch list there. So as you can see, I've got 5 midfielders and 4 strikers at the moment that I'm currently considering for my team. The reason there are no defenders, as I said, I think I can get away with not using any defensive transfers over the final 2 weeks. I think Cancelo and Trippier I'll play this week and next week, and then I'll play Castagna this week, and then hopefully one of Gahey against Forest or Doherty against Leeds in game week 16. So I think I can get through the next 2 weeks, hopefully without a defensive transfer. Obviously, if Gahey picks up a yellow card and Doherty looks like he's not going to play, maybe I'll end up having to use a defensive transfer in 16, but fingers crossed I'll be okay. So at the moment, like I said, it's almost definitely going to be a midfielder and a forward, or 2 forwards that I'm bringing in. The reason I would probably lean towards selling Saka if he's a doubt is because I don't think there are actually 2 forwards that I desperately want. I wouldn't mind taking a punt on one of them, taking out either Mitrovic or Firmino, but I don't think there are 2 that really blow me away. So starting with the forwards, I've got Wilson on there. My issue with Wilson, as I've said for a while, is you don't get the points from previous weeks. So listen, it was an absolutely fantastic transfer. And if you brought him in for 14, or if you've owned him maybe since sort of game week 9, 10, you've been ticking along with few returns. Getting a 19 pointer is absolutely ridiculous. It's probably shot you right up the rankings. But I need to now think that I'm bringing him in. I don't get those points, right? Those 19 points are not, I'm not going to get them anymore. I need to look forward. I need to try and predict who is the next player to get 19. And whilst I don't think you should necessarily let last week's points put you off a player, I also don't think that that should massively draw you towards one. And I just look at the next 2 fixtures. I think they're fine. Southampton away and Chelsea at home. But the easier fixture is away from home. And Chelsea, it depends what Chelsea team turns up, right? So I don't think these are the best fixtures for Wilson. The thing that I do love about him is he's always got pretty good data. He plays 90 minutes and he's on penalty. So for those reasons, I do really like him. But I don't necessarily think he's like the perfect option. So I think if you've got like a Mitrovic, a Tony, someone that you're looking at taking out, I think there are maybe other options, but I do really like Wilson. I've got Solanke on here, a bit of a boring one, but he's just got 2 good fixtures, right, against Leeds and Everton. So Solanke could come in if I want to go for a cheaper option. Again, nailed 90 minutes on penalties. All of the things that you guys know I love in a player. Scamacca is an interesting one, right? The second half still being played at the moment, still 1-0 in that game. I think Scamacca could be a decent transfer just because it's 2 home fixtures. Palace still look pretty poor defensively. They did keep a clean sheet against Southampton, but Southampton have been pretty toothless. Leicester have improved defensively, though. So whilst these are 2 decent fixtures, I think these are 2 defenses that are slowly improving over time. And Scamacca still doesn't look... I still don't think he looks fantastic, right? He's not scored a great deal of goals and his data still looks pretty poor. He does some things fantastically, right? His link-up plays, touch. He's taken the chances that he's had very well. I still am not convinced that he's going to get you tons of returns, though. And then the final one is the one that I really wanted to bring in this week, Calvert-Lewin. He didn't get a return this week, but he did play 90 minutes. So he's played 72, 77, 90. I think he's finding his fitness again, and he was very close to getting on the end of a cross. I think it was from Damari Gray against Fulham. So I still like Calvert-Lewin. I think he looks like he's fit. He's going to play most. He's going to start the next 2 games you would expect, and he's on penalties as far as we know. So at the moment, I'd probably go Calvert-Lewin or Wilson. Wilson just for the fact that his data's good 90 minutes and on pens, despite the fact that I don't think you're going to get anything close to what we got from him last week with a 19-pointer. And Calvert-Lewin's just a bit of a cheeky pump for me. With respect to the midfielders, if I do take Saka out, I think there are 5 that I'm considering. You've got both the Manchester United boys, Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford. I would probably lean towards Marcus Rashford. I think he's been absolutely fantastic, right, in recent weeks. I've been saying for a while that a Marcus Rashford haul is coming. Let's see if he gets it in the second half. If not, I still think he's got that. He's just such a goal threat. He's so direct. He's perfect for FPL. So Marcus Rashford would probably be top of my priority list. I don't mind a cheeky punt on Bruno Fernandes, though. I do think that for 2 weeks, yes, he's not as attacking as he was in previous seasons, but I think 2 decent fixtures, whilst they are away from home, I would back Bruno to do relatively well and get some chances for assists and goals. So maybe Bruno Fernandes could be a decent shout. To do that, though, I would have to take out probably Firmino rather than Mitrovic and make a downgrade that way in order to be able to afford Fernandes. So that's something to think about. Outside of that, I still think Gordon for the next 2 could be really good. Leicester at home and Bournemouth away, 2 decent fixtures. But again, both Leicester and Bournemouth have been decent enough defensively. So maybe not as good as they would first look on paper. I think Trossard could be really good. The next 2 fixtures aren't bad at all for Brighton, I should say. Wolves away and Villa at home. Villa obviously got demolished in game week 14, so those could be two decent fixtures for Brighton. So maybe Trossard's one to bring in, potentially. He's been really good. Like, other than the week that we desperately needed him, I didn't buy him, but most people desperately needed him in game week 12. He's actually been very good, Trossard. So maybe Trossard's a cheeky option if I bring him in for Saka. And then I've got to put Almiron on the list. I will hold my hands up, and I'm always happy to hold my hands up. I got this wrong. I was relatively confident he'd blank again blank again. I thought he would blank this week. When you look at his data, it is extremely average, but he's clearly on a hot streak. And I think as an FPL content creator, I need to identify when the data is not telling the full picture. And we've seen this in the past with the likes of Lingard, where players can just go on an incredibly hot streak and the data doesn't always support that. And he's got 15, 7, 3, 10, 10, 12. Like, to have 4 double-digit hauls in the space of like 5 or 6 weeks, he's obviously in a really, really hot streak. It's just trying to predict when that hot streak will end. If you think Almiron will continue to deliver, bring him in. I will probably anticipate that it's going to end at some point, and I'm probably going to avoid him, probably to my own detriment for the next couple of weeks, and just hope that the data will catch up with him in the end and that he's not going to continue to deliver what we're seeing from him. But I will admit he has been absolutely fantastic, and well done if you've owned him for any of those game weeks. So at the moment, I'm probably, like I said, looking at Saka and Mitrovic out, and I'm probably going, I want to go back to my watch list, probably Trossard or Rashford. I'll say I'll back my boy Rashi at the moment, and then for Mitrovic, I would have 8.6 million. So if I go back to my watch list, I don't know why FPL keeps changing that. It would be any of them, right? I can afford any of them. I think Wilson's the most sensible option, but you guys know that I'm not always sensible. So I'm probably looking at something like that for the upcoming last two weeks. 2 players with decent fixtures, 2 players that have explosive ability. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin's on pens, but I like all of the players in this watch list. And like I said, please do let me know down below, who do you think I should be transferring in? Are there any players that aren't on my watch list that you think maybe I've overlooked? I will give this more thought throughout the week, and I'll of course update you. There are going to be at least 2 other videos and a stream before the deadline. So we'll talk about it more throughout the week, but these are my current transfer plans. Let me know down below what your current transfer plans are as well. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 15 transfer plans video. If you did enjoy today's video, please do drop a like on the video, drop a comment down below to feed the algorithm gods, and also make sure to subscribe to follow me on my journey throughout this season. Massive thank you to everyone that helped me achieve 50,000 subscribers. That has been a massive, massive milestone that I've been wanting to hit for a while, and I cannot thank you enough if you are one of the 50,000 people that has helped contribute to hitting that milestone. Until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.